When did we start offering a 90s dance technique class?
It's not even a thing. She did this on purpose to fuck with me.
Oh, well, I thought you guys talked it out when you ran into her at Ralph's.
I tried, but she rolled up her window and drove off.
Well, maybe she left a pot on the stove and she was just in a hurry to get home.
She crock pots. She made me dinner once. We were trying to get to know each other.
Were you interested in dating her?
You okay?
Where are you?
Come on, let's go.
I ain't going with you. Get away. Get away.
Fine, stay here, wait for this trash to wake up. Just tell me where the police station is. I'm trying to help you.
Get away. Get away.
Fine,
Get away.
fine.
There he is.
They're trying to kill me. If you stay here, they're gonna kill you too. Let's go. Let's go!
Exit.
Can he talk?
Yeah, but it's all crazy talk. And I'm not taking the tape off his mouth. He bites.
You ladies ready to sweat?
Yeah!
Well, she was fine. And cool down.
Hey everybody, this is Josh.
And this is Shay.
Welcome to the Creator Podcast. We are super excited to have Sean Samuels with us today. Shay, give us a little more information about this guy.
Okay, so we're so excited because Sean is the essence of a creator. He is an Emmy nominated actor, musician, teacher, and he's also been on Broadway in Tarzan and West Side Story. So, Sean, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Honored. Thank you for having me.
We are so excited to have an actor. You are our first actor to talk with, and you're a triple threat.
Yeah, I am. I started off very young, so I kind of had time to like grab things on the way. I started off as a singer, so that led to acting, which led to dancing, and ultimately became a triple threat.
When we were like reading up on you, we saw that you played Charles Bates in Oliver Twist.
Yeah.
Is that what made you, like, what about that experience made you want to pursue acting?
What's funny about that, that was like my first actual experience on stage as an actor, as you want to say. That was like 7th grade. But the most important thing that came out of that experience was my guidance counselor. I had just gone to a new school from Catholic school, very reserved. And so when I went to public school in 7th grade, I was very nervous about all my atmospheres and all the kids, cussing and all these things. And she just saw me and she said, "You're very different. And so I want you to try something." And she put me into auditions for Oliver that year. And ever since that audition and that booking of my first named role, Charles Bates, you could not get me off stage. It was just like kismet. It was like, this is where I belong. I was in the community with people who thought like me, who kind of like acted like me. And so I just felt it was just like being at home. So that experience was like, that aha moment, like, where you belong.
And at 7th grade, I mean, that's such a 7th grade is such an age where you don't know what you really want at that point, and for you to have that experience, I mean, that's kind of amazing that you knew that you wanted to do it then.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like, you go, like you said, you're going through all these different these pubescent like feelings, like, why do I feel this way, should I feel that way, all these different things. And so if I think the fact that I was able to connect to something so young, that it kind of kept me out of trouble, it kept me focused, it kept me kind of head in the books, because if I was doing bad academically, I wasn't allowed to perform on stage or do anything that was creative like that. So it also kept me to be a well-rounded student. So I think it kind of saved me in that respect.
So from that point on, like, obviously you stayed in this space. Was it difficult to tell your parents or your mom like that you wanted to pursue acting or, dance, that whole creative thing for school, like for higher education? Were they like, well, maybe do business or accounting? or was your mom supportive?
I'm such a wonderful, wonderful mother, single mother. But I also grew up with my grandmother and my aunt. So it's three strong ladies in the household, raising nothing but boys. So it was like we could tell the dynamics was really crazy. But my older brother, Drew, who you know, he was the sports guy. He was like the everyman. So he would go to basketball. We go to his basketball games, cheer him on, and watch the Knicks at home. And I grew up around a lot of sports because of him. So by the time it was, you know, time for me to kind of figure out what I wanted to do seriously, my mom was so encouraging. She was like, do what you love, do what calls to your heart. I was already in the house, like flipping off the walls, teaching myself how to do backflips and like singing like Usher. And like, it was just always something that I woke up as, you know, like woke up creative. And so she saw that in me and she really, really encouraged me. And my grandma too would love old Hollywood movies and like Peter Sellers and Elizabeth Taylor. And so I would sit with her and watch all the Hollywood classics and really understand how that made people feel. I think that's what really called to me was that people pretending to be someone else could make real people feel a certain way, move them to different emotions. And I was always fascinated by that.
I love that you watched old videos with your grandparents. So did I, like Fred Astaire and like all those stuff, like Dancing in the Rain. Like I
Oh
love
gosh.
kind
Yeah.
of live performances. I mean, there's nothing like going to the theater and
Mhm.
actually seeing people. How did you get into Broadway? Like, what was that transition for you? Like, was it right out of high school or right after the academy?
Yeah, so I attended the American Musical Dramatics Academy in New York. It's right next to Juilliard, so it's also right next to I feel oh my gosh, the performing arts high school that Nicki Minaj went to. I'm slipping my mind. So it was a really big artistic community. I did that for 2 years. I studied musical theater for 2 years. After doing all the shows in high school, it was just like an easy, seamless transition. I was actually going to go to a regular university at Delphi in Long Island. Got accepted. I was going to go for dance, but then I kind of ran into AMDA, which is a full immersion of performance for their students. You don't really have to study academic, and that was what really called to me. I was performing all day. And so I think with that experience and that foundation, by the time my fourth semester came about, we were allowed to audition for professional work. And right out of school, I graduated in 2005. I'm probably dating myself right now, but I graduated in 2005. And that fall, I was making my first professional debut in West Side Story in Macau, China. Before I left to go to Macau, China, I was still auditioning for professional work. I auditioned for Tarzan the Musical, and funny story, Bernard Telsey was one of the biggest casting directors in New York City. He cast everything. Assistant came up to me and said, "Hey, Bernard Telsey wants to see you." I thought I was in trouble. I was like, "Oh my gosh, what does Bernard Telsey want to see me for?" Long story short, we ended up having a wonderful conversation because he ended up going, because he was actually a student, an alum from my high school, Elmont Memorial High School. So we connected on that way. And he put me in my first Broadway show in Tarzan. So I did West Side Story for a month in Macau, China, came back, had November to chill out, and then I was starting my rehearsals for my Broadway debut show in December of 2005.
For you to take your body and your persona and change it on stage for somebody, that is such an art. Like, to me, that is like not it's not lying. How would I say it? Like, it's like you're taking on something else, you're becoming something else than you are. And
Yeah.
to have that truth come through and have people believe it, like you were saying, it's such an art. It's such an art form.
I thank you for saying that. It is something special, and it has taken me, because I did start off mainly as a singer, I would say, but now I feel more connected with acting. It really took a lot of observation to kind of like start this ball rolling as an actor, observing people, everyday people, other artists, just people walking down the street. So it really is a skill and a craft that requires a lot of observation. And as a dancer, we learn from just watching other dancers and copying what they do. And so I
Yeah.
think kind of a similar thing as an actor. You're not maybe doing it physically, but you're kind of doing it mentally. Like, what does, in case, like if I'm playing Martin Luther King, what did he think, and how can I apply that to my point of view as Martin Luther King? So it's kind of like art kind of imitates life and life imitates art. So it's kind of like cyclical in that sense.
Yeah.
I believe that 100%.
Oh,
How difficult was it to, dance and sing and act at the same time on Broadway? Because that seems like a lot of, like, physically, mentally, emotionally, you bring all that together, and each one in its own is not easy. So,
yeah. That's a funny question. You kind of break it down, like going back to painting, like I don't know what your process was for that, Josh, or even you, Shay, but you lay down a layer first and you let that dry. Then you come back and you add another layer. It's no different than that. So we'll go in, we'll rehearse the steps, we'll rehearse the piece, the number, the dance number. Then we'll go in to learn the music and the melodies and the harmonies. And then we'll learn, what the given circumstance is for that piece of number. And then we just put it together. And a lot of times you're not really so much where you are dancing and singing at the same time. But, if you work with your breath and you work with how the story is supposed to be told, it just kind of becomes like you're forming that pot, that clay. That clay, takes some give and some take. It's all about the ebb and flow, even in dancing, acting, and singing. It's all kind of the same kind of mindset to me.
Yeah, because I have to say, after watching like a Broadway performance, I'm tired for you guys, and you do like 3 times a day, 4 days a week. I mean, what do you do when you mess up when you're doing a live performance? Do you just kind of like, woo? Like, what,
I tell you, I've messed up so many times on Broadway, but I feel like those are the gems that you kind of want. That's why live theater is so exciting because someone will mess up. I mean, I did Spider-Man on Broadway, and there was a lot of mess ups in that show, technically, performance-wise, all over the place. And the one thing that remains true and is also a cliche in the business is the show must go on, especially in theater. In TV and film, you can call cut and you can edit and you can paste and all that stuff. But in theater, like one time in Tarzan, we had like this huge dance number and exit or whatever, but we had these crazy wigs and costumes on. And at the end, I'm like the last animal to leave. And I, for some reason, like my wig wasn't on tight enough. And I did the flip and my wig flew all the way like 6 feet up in the air in front of the entire live audience. But you just grab that wig and you run go off stage. And the next scene happens. The next scene is swung in. So it's just about show must go on and realize that there will be mistakes. I think a lot of people look at artists and think they only see the result. They only see that beautiful picture. They only see that beautiful painting that you did. But they don't realize that there's such a process behind it. There's such a grueling process, a process that even makes some the best artists want to quit in the middle of their great masterpiece. So I think the more people can realize that the process is really the gratifying experience of the whole thing, I think the more people will look at us and seeing that, oh, they're working just as hard as somebody who's driving a bus every day. You know what I mean?
well, I totally agree with that. I think like one of the biggest things that I could always install into people going into the creative field is like your mess ups are going to be where you learn the most, and that is where you have to keep on going. Like you said, you're
Yeah.
going to mess up 1,000 times. Behind that painting, there's 15 other paintings that are painted over.
Right. See? Yeah.
Paint underneath that. So yeah, it's the same thing, and I love that you said that because I think it is really important for any young person going to the creative field or anybody that's creating is our failures are part of what makes us.
Absolutely. One of my favorite teachers, one of the great teachers, her name is Leslie Kahn. And the metaphor she uses, basically it's a lot of things she says, but one of the things that I really love and ran with was I hope it's okay to curse. Is it okay to curse in
oh
here?
yeah, that's fine.
Fuck it. Go up there and fuck it. You know what I mean? And fuck it is also kind of like a weird thing to think about. It's like you want to go up there and just fuck it, like don't care about anything. It's not that. It's like you do care. You do put in the time, the hours, the man hours that it takes to get to where you feel like it's great. But once you're up there in front of people, you can't think about all those rehearsals and all those things and all those technical things that your audience is not going to care about. So you do have to have a level of fuck it in your performance so it can feel like it's just a fresh. It feels like it's in the moment and in acting presently. So I think the more artists think about just fucking it and realizing that the mistake is really the beauty, more beauty will happen.
Yeah. And it's like just giving it your all. Like, fuck it. Like, what you had to do is done. Like,
Yeah,
you're prepared enough. Now just go and do it. Like, just,
absolutely.
yeah, just go for it.
Let it be second nature.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The performance will be what the performance will be, right?
absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
So, Josh,
Oh,
you are a fan of Phil Collins. I am too.
I love
You
I
was
love
awesome.
he is like a musical genius. I
Yes.
know he did parts, and to tell you the truth, I didn't even know that.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. And did you get to work with him at all? Or
He was around set. We didn't like really like have like we didn't like have lunch together like one on one like that because it was such a big production. But he was in the theater, writing music, composing music, changing music. His presence was very big during the rehearsal process. He was really interesting to watch because he's kind of like a quiet guy. He's not so some of these personalities kind of have egos and like these big whatever. Um, Bombastic qualities, but he was kind of more just like a normal person, somebody who just had skill and was called upon to make a beautiful musical theater piece, and that's what he did. He just showed up to do his job. It was really interesting to watch his process.
That makes me like him even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I would think he's like that. Because his music is it's earthy. He's real. He's genuine. So um, that comes across in the way he works too. Just kind
yeah,
of complements his his music.
absolutely.
he can take words and music together and tell a story so well. Like even in some of his songs, like
Oh my gosh.
the way that he tells stories with the music with it is just I don't know. I just don't think we have a lot of people like that left in the world producing that kind of stuff. So
And just the fact that he is a drummer on top of that, like his like skill really lies in syncopation and like the beat of it all. So the beginning of Tarzan is just drums, and he like even thinking about it gives me chills. It's just like the heavy drums, and then dun dun beautiful vocals on top of it. Like his mind, like just the way he thinks and visualizes his music, it's so inspiring to me.
do you ever see yourself going to like a producer role like that eventually, where you are something like that? Like, would you like to do that?
That is a dream of mine to be able to produce some great work like that on the other side of the table. Like I love to perform, but I also see the value in having your voice visualized on stage and have other people do it. I really do have that as a goal of mine.
So how did you end up switching from Broadway to film? Uh, was that like a natural transition, or is it like something that just kind of happened?
It it kind of a little bit of both actually. Naturally, I always had passions to see what TV and film was like, but since I did study musical theater so heavily and extensively in my like, teens and early 20s, Broadway was just there. And being from New York, it was like, oh, I'm home, I'm performing on my home turf, which was actually kind of cool. But during Spider-Man, that experience was really different in terms of how we rehearsed, in terms of how we had to be there and show up and the hours. It just kind of it gave me I experienced burnout during Spider-Man. And so during rehearsals for the Macy's Day Parade that year, all my castmates were like super stoked, and as they should be to be performing for the Macy's Day Thanksgiving Parade, but I wasn't there with them. I wasn't as
Excited?
excited
Yeah.
with them for some reason. And that I think that was the moment I realized that I had to make a change. And I was like, okay, so I'm on Broadway, I'm making so much money, and like, I can provide for my family and for myself and like live a happy life, but I'm not happy. And I think to me that was scary to me. And so I picked up the phone during that rehearsal and I called my mom, was like, I don't know what's gonna happen financially, blah, 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 but I'm gonna move to LA the following February, which was only like 2 to 3 months after that phone call. But again, my mom is so supportive and encouraging. She said, okay, she took a breath. She also was nervous about like what the next steps were. But she encouraged me. And, you know, I think if I didn't have that support, I would not be able to sit in front of you right now and, you know, talk about these experiences. I think as a creator, as an artist, you at least need to have one person to push you to say yes, go do that. Yes, that's amazing. Oh my gosh, wow. You know, just that, and not so much validation, because I there's a whole other thing I think about validation, because you know social media, we're all posting pictures for, you know, empty likes. But if you have somebody that you care about and that cares about you and is also pushing you to your greatest extent, then there's no reason to stop.
I love that.
I
You
would
know,
told Shay, I was like, you know, it would be amazing to if you just gave everybody just one support system for a creator, and you'd be amazed at what they can do. Just one person.
absolutely.
That
Yeah.
just one person just saying, yeah, that's good, but try it again. Or yeah, that's awesome. You know, keep on going that direction. If you just have a little bit of support, you'd be amazed at what people can do, right?
Absolutely. And you think about all the people who say they didn't have support. Even my mom, you know, my mom was, she says, if I at least had somebody to say that you should do this, because when she came from Jamaica, she was tall, skinny, and stuff, you know, and it was the '70s. She could have been up there with Iman, you know, running the catwalk, but she didn't have that.
Mm.
You know, her mother didn't really understand what that meant to push somebody into those fields. And so by the time I came around, she was like, no, I'm going to support this. She supports all her children, but she really like, it was like, go do that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have taken a lot of courage to come from, you know, how people always say you have to step outside of your comfort zone to be truly great or to, you know, really see what you're truly capable of or see your real self. It must have taken courage and, you know, there must have been some fear there when you decided, you know, I'm comfortable here, I'm on Broadway, I'm making money, but now I need to switch and I'm going to pursue that
Right.
desire to switch. That's not easy to step outside where everything's comfortable.
And it hasn't been easy. It really hasn't. You know, again, with people just seeing what I allow people to see through social media and whatnot. You know, there's been days in LA where it's lonely, because LA can be very, very lonely. If you don't really have that tribe, or even if you do have a tribe, people come here because they have a desire, and sometimes those desires kind of get mixed up into turning people into who they're really not. And so you lose a lot of connection that way. A lot of friends that you used to call friends aren't friends anymore, because they may have reached a certain level that they don't want to bother looking down to pick you up with them. And that's okay. You know, people do what they feel like they have to do to get to where they have to do. I'm not judging anybody. But then, you know, there's the days where your bank account isn't looking right, or the way things are set up, it's just like rent is due. It's really tough. It's a journey. And that's, again, it's a process. Life is the process to get to your art, to me. So getting groceries in a pandemic so I can come home and sit down and produce my music, that's a part of the process, because I need to be fed so I can make some music and have some energy, some sustenance, so I could create. Those little things are really a part of being an artist, and sometimes it does take being lonely, sometimes it does take being broke. I'm not saying you have to go through those things, but you know, there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat,
Mhm.
and that's just been some a part of my experience. You know, I live by myself right now. It's good and bad, especially during this climate that we're in. um, but it's all part of the process, and everything that happens in life, I really just chalk it up to being part of my journey, my process.
I used to spend time in New York and LA for my last job that I was there for 7 years producing behind the scenes for eyewear and fashion. And New York and LA are so different. I can't even explain to people unless you've seen both sides of those worlds.
Yeah.
And like I love LA, but I have a good group of friends that live there that I've known for a very long time. So it's like, but if you're just going out there for the first time, and I've seen models like break down on set, I've seen people like I'm done with this. And the process of what I've seen from casting in LA versus casting in New York is very like, this is the point, this is whatever. They'll put you through the ringer in LA. They
Oh,
will like
absolutely.
3 or 4, and you think you got it, and you don't got it. How
Absolutely.
you. And
Yeah.
it's just, man, you got to give these kids a break or these people a break, you know. So I can only imagine the casting process out there for movies.
I,
And
in that respect, I kind of do miss New York because New York, in a lot of ways, really respects talent,
mhm,
actual talent. You know, you can't auto tune yourself or you can't pretend to be a dancer. Like you have to actually have technique, you know, ballet training in New York. New York really is the ground for like technical performers.
mhm,
LA, on the other hand, lends itself to influencers and people who may have 10 to 20 to 30,000 followers on social media who can like do a quick video and promote someone else's brand. You know, and there's a lot of influencers who are with, you know, CAA and UTA, the biggest agencies, because TV realizes if they already have an audience, we can transfer those audiences, their audience into viewers. And that it doesn't always mean that that person is the most talented and is the most apt for the job. So it definitely hurts people who did go to train for years and years and whatever. But in that sense, like this business also, you have to look at it in longevity because those influencers, yeah, they're hot right now, but like 10 years from now, will they still know how, will they really know how to maintain a career? Will they know what it takes to be on set for 16 hours a day if you're a series regular? You know what I mean? There are a lot of technical things that the influencer may not understand that the technical actor will understand. And so, and I think there's room for both, but we have to understand each other and not think one is better than the other, in my opinion.
Mm.
I could only imagine going through the casting experience. Like, I mean, we see that you've done a few movies and you've also done Giants, which I've watched a few episodes of that, and I think that's your longest series, right? Giants.
Yes, that's the only series that I've been a series regular in. Yeah.
And I mean, for your role in that, I mean, you're in both seasons, correct? And
Yes.
so that was that nice to have that deep dive, to have that, because in Broadway you're just doing, the one character over and over. This one you got to develop. Like, did you like that process of being able? Did you get to do a lot of like script changes and like stuff like that? Did you pull from all experience?
Love the process that we were put through during Giants. It's actually one of the best experiences that I've had professionally. It was a great team. It started off in a small way and turned into this like huge thing. And I'm so proud of where it has come and even where it may go in the future. Um, I did love the process of uh, developing a day in a way where, you know, on theater you get to be big and boisterous and like, you know, thee and thou and all this, but here in TV and film you have to be believable to the person sitting on the couch watching your every nuance. So I really had to work to be believable on camera, and that was a whole different muscle as an actor that I got to exercise in 2 seasons of Giants. And I think I've become a stronger actor because I got to sit back and watch, like, ooh, Sean, why'd you do that? Ooh, that was a good moment. You know, it's all about, it's about, you know, when you're a doctor or a lawyer, they say you practice. You're practicing first, and I don't think it's any different than any other artistic endeavor. I practice. That was a practice for me. So when I do get to be a series regular someplace else, maybe on a Netflix show or Amazon Prime show, I'll have that experience to be like, yeah, that practice showed me what I can and cannot do. So that time on set for Giants was invaluable.
I totally get your point. Like, from theater where you had to project everything to film, yeah, you had to tone all that down.
Absolutely.
What steps did you do to prepare yourself for that?
Well, a day, he deals with a lot of things that I identified with. So a day he deals with like social identity, sexual identity, and he unrequited love with one of his really good friends who may or may not be straight. So he's dealing with like coming into himself and also his artistic self too. He went to school for a Bachelor of Science because his Nigerian dad, wanted him to get a good education, but a day's real passion was to be a dancer and a dance teacher. And so how going through that and figuring out what the moves and steps are, I identified with him so easily, so quickly, just because yes, I've experienced unrequited love, of course, and I've also experienced like the struggles of do I still want to dance, or am I a dancer, or what do I identify as? There's a lot of questions that a day had that I definitely had as a performer, as an artist, that I could bring to set and display for everyone to view. So it wasn't really so much of a development, but more of a way of how do I bring that to the forefront so everyone can see that clearly. That's what I'm going through.
Yeah. Or being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly, yeah.
So typically, as an actor, you're stepping into a role and becoming this person and developing this character. Has doing that worked in reverse? For instance, from being in a role, has it helped you in your personal life
Yeah.
and changed, like being in that role, you like have aha moments about your own life?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. You know what? And not just as a day, but a lot of different things that I've gotten to do in front of the camera has acted in a way of as therapy.
Mm,
For example, as a day has this whole thing with his father, and not to get too deep, but I didn't really grow up with my father. He wasn't ever around, but a day did. But still, a day didn't really receive the kind of love that he needed from his father, and so I kind of used that experience, that full circle that a day had with his father, and kind of greedily took it and made it catharsis for me, as a child who didn't really grow up with his father, and his father didn't really care much about what was going on in his life. Using a day's experience, kind of, I use it as a mirror from my experience with my father. So yeah, it definitely has lent itself and taught me a lot about myself as a person, as a human being, as Sean Samuels, through a day. So yeah, yeah. I never thought about it like that, but absolutely.
yeah. That's interesting. I wonder, like, on the flip side, if it works, like, let's say if you play the Joker or someone crazy, I wonder if it has. No, I'm just wondering, because I mean, of course, it's great because it's just listening to you and I was thinking it's got to have some effects on you both ways, right? And I wonder, like, if you play the Joker or something, does that bring like your dark side out? Like,
Absolutely does, and I hear a lot of times where actors talk about when they have to just leave work at work. If
Mhm.
you're doing something like the Joker, like you don't want to come home to your 4 kids and wife acting like the Joker because they're gonna think daddy is crazy. But if you're a good enough actor to, really focus what you gotta do on set, be the Joker on set, and then after they call wrap for the day, you go back into your dressing room or your trailer, and you start to peel off the Joker, start getting back into your own thoughts, because that's what acting is. Acting is embodying the thoughts of the character you're taking on. You have to also be able to release those thoughts
And turn it off.
and turn it off.
So I wonder, is there a process that people like? I'm thinking like probably if it were me, I might need to do like some kind of meditation thing. Like if I'm playing like a role like that, okay, go back into my
Oh
dressing room.
yeah,
Let me sit down. Let me remove this energy of this character that I have and separate myself from it. So
yeah.
yeah, do you do anything to prepare to get into a role spiritually or anything? And then the other way as well, like once you leave it, like is there anything people do?
To prepare for a role, I do like to do a lot of research. If it's like a role where I can pull from things, like if it's like an idea of a demographic, like for example, I did a fun role in Puerto Rico for a shark movie called Toxic Shark. And that character was like fresh out of college, going on vacation with his homeboys, and it was fun. So that kind of research was fun to do. All you gotta do is watch, Spring Break MTV from 1990s or whatever, and understand where you got to go, in what direction you got to go into. He's the fun guy, so and a token black guy. So, with that said, there's a lot of things that you can start to build upon. But then I remember during on set during that movie, director called cut, and it was like a really active scene. We were like playing tug of war in the ocean. It was such a fun time to shoot that movie. And then director called cut, and then I let go of the character. The character's name was Zane, and then the leading actress turned back to me. She was like, "Oh my God, such a different person. Like, who is that?" Because yeah, if you're playing a character, it really shouldn't look, or not all the time, but a lot of times, it shouldn't look like who you are walking out after they call rap. You know, it should be a completely different essence. And that's what you're developing, you know, in the meditation of developing a character. It's like, what is his essence? What is Zane's essence? What is a day's essence? And how does it differ from mine? And how is it similar to mine? Because you do need to compare and contrast these characters to you as a person so you know either to keep it or to get rid of it for the camera.
Do you even change your gestures with a character? Like, let's say, what was the guy's name on the Toxic Shark?
Thing, yeah.
Like, would you walk with like a more bow-legged stance or something to
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always love to find those little things. And that goes back into the observing people on an everyday basis. It's like, you know, I may stand with my hands like this naturally as Sean, but Zane wouldn't do that. Zane would probably be more like here, be a little bit more, you know, defensive, or like be a little bit more bro, or like he'll do something crazy, or just whatever those little things are. You really do have to be mindful of, is it right? Is it accurate? Is it text based? You know, where does that decision come from, and how can you play in a believable way? So all those things. You know, Viola Davis is amazing. I don't know if you got to see her in Ma Rainey on Netflix, but she is a completely different woman in that movie. Like, everything she did in that movie was from observation, in my opinion. Like, there was a scene where she was scratching the middle of her hand like this. And for me, going back to my mom does that religiously, like all the time. And I'm like, and when she does it, she knows, I must be getting some money.
Yes, that's what I was.
That's what I know as well. When my hands scratch this, I do it. Yeah, and I know.
Oh my gosh! And so for the whole movie, when Viola Davis did that, it was about her getting that money, because at the end of the movie, she's getting paid for doing whatever she did in the recording studio. So it was. She's about to get some money. She was coming into some money. Those are the little things that I love to see if I can create in the character.
Amazing, because I
Yeah.
think what I like about this podcast that we're doing, people get to really understand what goes into what someone does. Because I think people tend to take for granted, whether you're a painter, an actor, a singer, people always just, like you said, see the final product. But they don't understand that there's thinking and education and study behind every craft. Like, you see a painting, it's done. You see a great show, you're like, oh, that was a great movie. But what went into each character and what the person had to do is
Right.
not just going on stage and having fun and, you know, pretending to be someone.
No.
There's so much more that goes into everybody's craft. And,
Absolutely.
you know, people don't often take the time to learn and understand and really appreciate what
Right.
people do.
Yeah. And in dealing with, oh, sorry, go ahead, Josh. Go
Oh
ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, like, I could never remember lines. I don't know how you do it. For me, like, to do something verbatim, because I'm sure Broadway is verbatim. Like, you get the script and this is what you have to say. How that's got to be terribly stressful.
It used to be a lot more stressful until I developed a technique in how to learn lines. And so a lot of growing up, a lot of in my early training, it was just about learning lines. But as I developed, especially moving to LA and being around other seasoned actors for TV and film, it's never really about learning lines. It's about understanding the point of view. And if you can understand the character's point of view, the lines will be second nature. And so, what am I thinking before what was just said or done? Like again with Ma Rainey and Viola Davis, her performance was so groundbreaking to me because it was all point of view, a point of view of a black woman in 1930s, 1920s, 1930s who was being taken, who felt like she was being used, who was being taken advantage of, and she was having no part of it. You know what I mean? Give me what I'm due. I am worth it. And what's funny about that is that as Viola Davis, I've heard her say in interviews, pay me what I'm worth. If you think I am Meryl Streep, pay me what I'm worth. So they picked the right actress to do that. Point of view. What resonates in this character as my point of view, the lines will come secondary because the lines are going to be on the paper. You can always pick up the paper and see what it says, put it back down and say it. But point of view is what's going to stick. Make it stick.
Well, it's funny that you say that, like the point of view, because yeah, because if you're just worried about saying the line for line for line, you're gonna mess it up. But
Yeah.
if you have the thought process of the character behind it, you can mess up a little bit and keep on going, and nobody's gonna know.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's about how do I get from one line to the next line to the next line. And your point of view will change and vary. The journey will change and vary. I always tell my students, think about your everyday life from when you wake up out of bed till you go to sleep. And think about and count all the different emotions you may go through in one day, in 1 hour. You know what I mean? That's what it is. That's what performance is. And that's what you bring to stage. A lot of times my students forget all that and they come up and they just recite lines. But then I say, hey, no, what are you thinking? What's that point of view right there? And they're like, oh, okay, yes, Mr. Sean.
To play a villain or a good guy?
um, that's I would like to play like the anti-hero. You know, like the good guy who doesn't really want to be a good guy, but is just called and destined to be the good guy and save the world. Someone who's begrudgingly the hero, you know, kind of like Neo and Matrix and Will Smith and that I forget his superhero movie, but like just the guy who's just like, ugh, or Deadpool. I love Deadpool.
I love Deadpool. One of my
Yeah,
favorite movies ever. Because
yeah.
he's an asshole, but he's a good guy.
He's the good guy, you know, and he has no choice but to be the good guy.
Yeah.
So I would love to play like the anti-hero.
Are there any roles that you wouldn't take? Like, who is it? Was it Dave Chappelle who said that you need to know your whatever he said, cutoff point, like
Yeah.
where you're like, okay, this I am not willing to do. Do you have anything that where you're like, okay, you know what, when it comes to this, I'm not gonna do anything.
I definitely don't want any roles that has to do with like pedophilia.
Okay.
Nothing like that.
Yeah.
Send it to someone else.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
But
You can pass me with that.
people pass me all the way on it. But because I just love children, and I'm not trying to make or humanize pedophilia, but they are human. That's just not a story that I have any desire to tell.
I never thought about that though. But that like that's a thing. Like
That's the
yeah,
thing. That's the
yeah.
thing. Yeah, you know, and it happens, and it happens in society. Someone will tell that story and probably do a phenomenal job. I just don't know if I have the stomach for that.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm pretty free, great, free. I'm pretty game for a lot of different things.
This question we didn't write it down for you, but how do you feel about um the influence that like Hollywood and TV and stuff has on people and people's lives? Do you feel any kind of way about that?
Yes. Well, I definitely think representation is important. Like, you know,
Okay.
we need to see people that look like us,
Mhm.
all races, on screen. But I also feel like as a creator, we have a responsibility to tell stories accurately,
Mhm.
to make sure that the story is being told in a way where not so much for education, because it's not only education, it's also entertainment,
Yeah.
but it needs to be responsibly told. You know, we don't want to just tell stories because, oh, we think it's cool, but if this is going to make people go to class and shoot 100 kids, then I don't really know what the purpose of that story was. You know what I mean? So I think creators really have to be responsible in the stories they choose to tell.
Yeah, we are powerful as creators
Yeah.
because we do have the power to put stuff out there for good or for bad. So
Absolutely.
that is
You know,
definitely
on that same point though, like I think that times are changing so much now and it's changing so fast, which I think is amazing. Like even the giants, like Issa Rae, like that started off on that platform. So it's not like these white corporate Jewish guys, what everybody thinks
Right.
controls all the movies. So
yeah.
now we have a different uh, platform that people are telling more truthful stories and more authentic stories to people's lives that they can correlate in a different way, which I think is just a great new way. And I think that a lot of shows like Netflix is a great company that shows tons of different things. And I think, I mean, do you think that that's going to keep on going?
I
Where
really hope so. I really hope that people I think it will because I think a lot of huge corporations or huge networks see the value in telling truthful and accurate stories, like Insecure on HBO, truthful and accurate. You know, Atlanta on FX, truthful and accurate, and and those societies, those cultures, those communities exist. So why not tell those stories? Why not let people who live in rural Tennessee understand what happens in Atlanta with Black people? Like we are America, especially after this week. We've seen a different side of America.
Mm.
Um, and And regardless of what you think is right or wrong, those people feel oppressed. Those people feel like their voices aren't being heard, and that's what they felt like they needed to do to be heard. As unfortunate as that event was, these are people who are calling out. People who look like you and I, Shay, we would have never even gotten that close to step into the Capitol to do that. But we had a BLM where everybody, the rainbow, was out there supporting that, and they were treating us like had two heads. So we need to tell truthful stories, going way back into history. You know what I mean? We need to start telling history accurately and letting our students know what really happened in the development of America.
Yeah. I just think that there's a lot of stuff with that point that they need to come to terms with, like the hypocrisy of it all, right? Like if you took events of last week, if Black people would have done that, or the Black Lives Movement would have done that, look how differently that was treated versus
Right.
what they got through and the way that they handled that whole situation. And that's a whole story that I think that the U.S. will have to tell.
Yeah,
And
and
I
I
hope
think
it does.
with stuff like that, facts are just facts. Like we all see it, whether you accept it or not, that's up to you. But like the fact is that the treatment was different. But
Oh,
in talking about all this stuff, I was wondering, how much creative freedom does an actor get?
Mhm.
Like when you're acting, like you know, even with Josh and I as graphic designers, right? We get projects. Sometimes people think that because you're a creative, you just get to like create and do all this fabulous stuff and just do
True.
whatever you want, whatever colors you choose.
Yeah.
That's not the reality of it. We are given, you know, a lot of like, you can't do this, we need this, we like it like this. You try to step outside of that box, they're like, oh, so you have
Yep.
to figure out ways to be creative within a box sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's absolutely correct. As an actor, in my experience, I've always been called upon to bring a sense of collaboration in terms of like developing the role. Yes, they have the role and the character down on paper, and this is the given context, and this is the box that you have to stay in. But like maybe I get to choose like what kind of wardrobe. Like for example, for on a day, like had a lot of say in what a day wore. Um, and a lot of things in terms of actions, like what I would choose to do on camera, I got to do that from my own creative standpoint. But I couldn't change a day's name, or I couldn't, change lines or something like that. So yeah, there is a limit. There is some kind of boundary in terms of what actor can bring and not bring, and also contractually. Maybe some people just develop something different in their contracts with their agents or managers and network and say, yeah, I have full creative license over this, and maybe it is the actor's show that he or she is putting out, and so I'm the showrunner, and what I say goes. So it just depends really on where the actor lies on that call sheet.
Yeah, because Josh, that reminded me of that movie we watched with Michael David Lynch's when that guy was acting in the bar. And they told him,
Oh,
yeah, and they asked him to say a simple line, but he was doing all this extra stuff with this,
much.
and they were like, "No, just say this." And then he was because
Yeah.
he got this big break to be in a movie, and they're like, "We just want you to." Do you remember the line? We just want you to say.
like, here you go.
Yeah, he was a bartender and he was supposed to say, "Here you go." Then he did a spin and then he was like, "Here you go, madame." And they were like, "No, no, we don't need that."
Yeah, you as an actor, you need to know what you've been called to do. If you've been called to do, there's co-stars, there's guest stars, and there's like series regular, okay, or recurring then series regular. If you're called as a co-star and you only have one line, just say that one line. Say that one line and go about your business, okay? There's no reason for you to try to make it the show is about you, because it's not. You're probably acting with the person who's number one on the call sheet, and it's their show. It's them who needs all the light. So just say, here's your water, sir, and go back into your trailer, whatever, and take that credit and put it on your IMDb. And so when you're looking for agents and managers, be like, oh, okay, you're working, good.
But then as a regular person, you would think like saying, "Here's your water." Like, this is my moment. So how far can I go on my resume with, "Hey, I did this and I said, here's your water." Like, is that enough for my resume for people to hire me?
It may not be, and even on top of that, winning an Oscar may or may not be either. This is just the business of objective of like you may think that person deserves the Oscar because this is a wonderful thing, but somebody else may think that performance was crap. You know what I mean? So winning an Oscar doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get all the attention and light afterwards, too. I remember going back to Viola Davis. I watched her talk on this Netflix documentary about August Wilson, and she says, it's not always about winning that award because then the next question is and and what now? What's next? What's next? You may go back to just being a co-star or a guest star, but it really is about just working.
No.
Getting that job, booking the room. What you can do with that one line for your co-stars is don't make it a moment on camera for your big break, but make sure that you say hi to the directors, hi to the writers, make your presence known in the room, make sure that they know who you are so they can remember you, be like, oh, I really love that guy. I love that what Josh did on set. Let's bring him back for another role. Or we have another show that we're planning in the future. He's going to be great for this role, which may be a series regular. So yes, that one line can be a break, but may not as a break on camera, but just be remembered
You know
in a
what?
positive way.
That speaks to what people say a lot, like opportunities and stuff come out of relationships. So
Yeah.
what you're saying completely supports like how you are with people. Your relationships are usually what give you opportunities.
Yeah.
And how competitive is it out there?
Oh my God.
It's
Like,
very competitive. It is and it isn't though, because that's kind of like a weird dichotomy because you're working so hard to be you and the individual you. So in that respect, I don't think there really is competition because there is only one you. But then when you go to an audition, you see 10 people who look just like you. Okay.
yeah,
Right? So what do I do? How do I stand out? You go back to just being you because no one is going to do you the way you do you. But someone who may look like you, it may make you feel like it's a sense of competition, but it really isn't competition because he may not even understand what the scene's about,
Yeah.
and you do, and you book the role. You know what I mean? So it's really a competition within yourself.
Well, for some of us, we're outside of Hollywood. How do you maintain your sanity? Because I know it's been a long kind of issue about women and looks and beauty. And I mean, that's got to be tough dealing with that on a constant basis. Judgment. I mean, I take it that there is a lot of judgment on you need to look like
Absolutely.
this, and then pressure upon yourself to look
Yeah.
a certain way. Um, which can take away from your individuality, but you don't want to take away from that, if you get what I'm
Absolutely.
saying. But then
Yeah.
you feel like you need to fit into a certain type of look or way of being, but then
Yes.
that takes away from being who you truly are. That's got to be a
I
lot.
mean, we see it every day. We see it with our rappers or female rappers, especially, sometimes, and our actresses too. I really have a soft place in my heart for women in this business, and then on top of that, women of color in this business, because as a man, there's only but so much that they want you to change about yourself because I guess whatever the stereotype is about being men. But then women, they say, oh, maybe you should go get your butt bigger or you should get your lips filled or get your breasts this, that. Like, I can't even really speak on the pressures of that because it's just overwhelming to even think about. So it really is kind of like a sad thing to have people who don't even know who you really are tell you what you should look like, right?
Mm,
That really is kind of like a depressing thing. It's like, no, I look like this because this is what my mom and my dad gave me. This is what God gave me. This is what I'm bringing to the camera. And this is my part of my collaboration, who I am, who I show up when I wake out of bed. But now you're asking me to go fix my nose because you think it is going to shoot well on camera.
yeah.
Going back to Dave Chappelle, you have to have your nose.
yeah.
You have to be a strong enough person to know who you are to have, no, I'm not doing that. If you can't deal with that, then I'm moving on to the next production.
Mm,
That's good advice.
yeah.
I think that everybody has to have their boundaries and what they do, and it is somewhat superficial, I guess, in the movie business because I feel like you have to be a model and an actress now. You can't just be an actor.
Can't just be,
If you
nope.
look back in the day, I mean, a lot of those actors were not models by any means. They,
No, absolutely.
but you knew the difference. You know the difference between a model and an actor.
Yeah.
Now those lines are blurred. That you have Charlene Theron being the cover of Dior, and they're taking their modeling job.
The modeling
So
jobs, yeah.
you crossed over into this whole other line. So you had to be more than just an actor.
Yeah, it's so true in all respects. Like they expect you to be the creator, the writer, the director, the actor. Like now in COVID, like all my auditions are self tapes. So now I'm being called to like put myself on tape, set up my lights, set up my camera, so I look the best. So casting can cast me out of my living room. I'm not, it's not easy because some people don't. I'm a photographer, so I kind of understand the concept of lighting and all that stuff. But a lot of my friends aren't. They barely can take a selfie. So it's like asking, requiring all these little different aspects that they really want to have to be mindful of. And then on top of that, require them to be spot on as an actor. While you're thinking about, is this light right? Sitting by yourself, and it's just a lot of things that actors have to think about right now.
What's going on with Broadway? Broadway can't do anything right now, right? They're not doing any live performance. They're not doing.
Broadway has been hit
What?
terribly bad. It's been kind of sad. That's my first home, and to not see it in action, especially spending time in New York for the holidays, and not. I didn't go to the city once during, and I always run to the city when I come to New York. Like I love New York City. I didn't even go once this time because it was too depressing to see Times Square the way it looked, Herald Square the way it looked. It's really sad. And my heart goes out to anybody who had a job last year on Broadway who's like, I don't know what the future looks like. And a lot of them may come over to LA or try to, make that switch to TV and film, which I encourage. But a lot of people just love Broadway, and right now it's a struggle.
Yeah, I mean, like God, ever since I was 8 or 9, I've always gone to at least 3 or 4 live performances a year, and it's just sad. And
It's just
it's so sad for like my godson and people in my family that are young that don't get those experiences this year or this year for 2021.
I think people have some kind of like hope that maybe March, April, May things might turn around, but I, I don't know.
A second last question, like what advice, like through all your experiences, we always like to hear um, what advice through your whole experience up to where you are today would you give someone listening who's trying to pursue a career in acting, singing, dancing?
My number one advice for somebody who may be a beginner and thinking and considering about doing it is don't wait for the validation to do it. If you feel in your heart that it's something that you really want to do or even give a try at, we have to just try it to see if it's something that we want to stick. Just do it and don't wait for somebody to tell you to start doing it. Do it. Validate yourself. And that even goes even to like artists who've been in the business for years. Don't wait for validation. If it's something that's been sitting in your mind, if it's an idea, get it on paper. Do it. Do it. Don't wait for that empty like.
I like that.
I like that.
Yeah.
And then our final question that we always ask our guests: what does being a creator mean to you?
Being a creator means to me answering all those nonsensical but sensical things that may turn up into your head like, was that a line for a song? Yeah, answer that. As a creator, you know, showing up and going outside and seeing art in nature. That's a creator. Waking up and turning on the music and dancing in your kitchen just to get good. That's a creator. Somebody who's in touch with their senses. Someone who is vulnerable and empathetic and understands that it takes time to get to a place of not even perfection, of understanding. A cook is a creator. A woman having birth is a creator. It's so many different types of creation in this life. And so I just think being a creator is also about just being.
Wow,
Mhm.
very well said, Sean.
I'm gonna have Sean up on his creator profile page on our website so everyone can check that out. But if you like, is there anything new you're working on or you
Sure.
want to listen to, and where can they follow you
Yeah, you can. Actually, I'm going to be on the second season of Family Reunion on Netflix. There's like one episode that I'm going to be on, so that's coming up. Really excited about that. I have some music coming out, some independent stuff coming out on all streaming services. One single is called Fluid, another one's called Friends Don't. And you can catch me on social media at Mr. Sean Samuels on Instagram and Facebook me. You can Google me, you can find me, you can email me at SeanSamuelsLA.com, Sean at SeanSamuelsLA.com. But yeah, social media is the best bet.
Well, thank you for taking the time and being on the show with us. We have enjoyed it. And we hope that you'll stay in touch with us and share all the new stuff coming up. And we can't wait to see you in more stuff. And yeah.
And then Josh, we can say when he gets that big show, whatever he does, we'll be like, we had him first.
Love that. No, I want to give a shout out to Todd Chapman too for setting this all up, and happy belated birthday to Todd Chapman. He's a great family friend. I'm so appreciative of him for hooking us up and linking this up together.
Yes.
You guys are wonderful. This has been such a pleasure. I was looking forward to it since we had that phone conversation. So this has lived up to all my expectations, and I definitely will be keeping in touch with you guys.
Okay, thank you, Todd.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it.
And remember, it's more than art, it's life. Imagine more.